"Mister, can we hire you?" That was the first thing I heard before my world stopped spinning. I froze, holding a tray of empty cups, staring across the restaurant floor. My three little devils, my triplets, stood in front of a man who looked like he'd walked straight out of a dream and into my nightmare. Black suit, silver watch, cold eyes, and my children, my sweet, reckless children, were standing right in front of him, clutching each other like they'd made the best decision of their tiny lives. "Can we hire you to go to a party with our papa?" My youngest, Liam, said it with his small hands gripping the edge of the man's table. The alpha's brows lifted, just slightly. The room went quiet. I nearly dropped the tray. "Liam," I hissed, rushing over before the floor could swallow me whole. "Lien, what did I tell you about bothering customers?" The man turned his gaze on me, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. Sharp jawline, eyes like a storm, and a faint scar near his lip that somehow made him look even more dangerous. He looked like someone who didn't smile often, or maybe didn't remember how to. "I'm so sorry, sir," I said, bowing my head, my cheeks burning. "They didn't mean to." "It's fine," the man interrupted, his voice deep and even. "I've never been offered a job by toddlers before." My children giggled. I wanted to melt into the floor. "Papa needs a date," Leo said proudly. The people at the restaurant party said only couples can come. "Leo," I whispered sharply, grabbing his hand. "That's enough." The man's lips curved barely, a smirk that made my stomach twist. "And what exactly would this job pay?" he asked, playing along. Lien blinked up at him, confused. "Pay." The alpha leaned back, resting an arm over the back of his chair. His voice was smooth, teasing, yet there was something behind it, something heavy, unreadable. "Never mind," he said softly. "I think I'm already intrigued." I didn't sleep that night, not because of the embarrassment, though that would have been enough, but because of how that man's eyes lingered, calm, unreadable, almost knowing. Adrian Stone. That was his name. CEO of the very company that owned the restaurant I worked in. And I, Eli Park, was just the tired, overworked single father who served him coffee every Wednesday morning. I didn't know he'd remember my name. I didn't know he'd come back the next day. But he did. And this time, he asked for me specifically. When I walked to his table the next morning, my hands were trembling. "Good morning, Mr. Stone," I said quietly. "Would you like your usual?" His gaze flicked to my stomach, the small curve I could no longer hide. "Are you expecting?" he asked, tone unreadable. I swallowed. "Yes." He nodded once, then leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I heard your children want to hire me." I froze. They were joking," I stammered. "Please don't take it seriously." "Who said I don't?" That made me look up. His eyes caught mine, steady and intense. "Tell me about the party." "It's just a staff event," I muttered. "They said employees can only attend with partners." It's stupid, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I told them I was seeing someone. And now they expect to meet him. My lips parted. "How do you?" He tilted his head. "I have ears in my own restaurant, Eli." Something about the way he said my name made my heart skip. Then his next words changed everything. "Let me be your date." I blinked. "What?" "You need someone to play along, don't you?" he said simply. "I don't mind pretending. I could use a night out." "That's ridiculous. You're my boss." He leaned back, lips curling faintly. "Then consider it in order." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because I was desperate. Maybe because part of me wanted to see what was behind that calm, cold exterior. The night of the party, I stood in front of the mirror, tugging nervously at my borrowed suit. My belly was small but visible, my heart racing. When Adrian arrived to pick me up, the entire world seemed to stop. He looked devastating in black. "Ready?" he asked quietly, offering his arm. I nodded, pretending not to notice how warm his hand felt when it brushed mine. The party was nothing like I expected. Everyone stared. Whispers filled the hall. My co-workers, those who used to mock me behind my back, now looked at me with open shock. "That's your boyfriend?" one of them whispered. I smiled stiffly, my hand trembling in Adrian's grip. He squeezed it gently. "Ignore them," he murmured near my ear. His voice was low, private. "You're doing fine." My heart jumped. Then, out of nowhere, a woman approached, tall, elegant, smiling too wide. "Adrian," she purred. "You didn't tell me you were bringing someone." Her perfume hit me like smoke. She looked me up and down with quiet disdain. "This is Eli," Adrian said evenly. "My partner." The word partner hit harder than it should have. Her smile faltered. "Oh, I see. The tension was sharp enough to cut. I wanted to run. But then, Adrian placed a steady hand on my back, warm, firm, protective. Don't mind her, he murmured. She's just jealous. His tone was calm, but his eyes, they were dark. Dangerous. That was when I realized this wasn't just about helping me. He was protecting himself, too. From her. From something unspoken. And somehow, that made me want to know him even more. Later that night, when the party lights dimmed, I found myself outside on the balcony, trying to breathe. The night air was cold. My feet ached. My babies kicked softly inside me, as if reminding me they were there. Running away already? His voice came from behind me. I turned, startled. I just needed air. He stepped closer, stopping just a breath away. You handled yourself well tonight. Thanks. Silence fell between us, thick and electric. Then he said softly, next time, don't thank me. You made me look good in there. My chest tightened. Next time. He smiled faintly, a ghost of warmth in his eyes. Who said the fake relationship is over? That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You looked beautiful tonight. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. It started out as a game. A fake relationship. A deal sealed with a smile and a text message that kept me awake more nights than I'd admit. But the longer it went on, the harder it was to tell where the pretending ended and where the truth began. The week after the party, Adrian started showing up more often. He'd come to the restaurant early, before opening hours, claiming he just needed coffee. But his gaze always found me, past the counter, past the noise. Sometimes he brought breakfast for me and the kids. Sometimes he just sat quietly, watching as I wiped tables or tried to control 3 small whirlwinds of energy. The triplets adored him instantly. Papa, look. Liam giggled one morning, holding a paper flower. Mr. Adrian helped me make this. Adrian smiled, actually smiled. It's for your papa, he said, handing it over. The flower was lopsided, the petals uneven, but I couldn't stop staring at it. My throat tightened. Thank you, I whispered, more to him than to the kids. He just nodded, like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing, because no one had done something kind for me in years. Every night, after the restaurant closed and the kids were asleep, I'd catch myself rereading his messages. Eat something before you faint again. The twins need jackets tomorrow. It'll rain. You don't have to do everything alone, Eli. He never called, never said too much, but his words felt like a hand reaching into the dark. Still, I kept reminding myself, it was fake. He was doing this because he wanted to. Maybe for fun. Maybe for curiosity. It couldn't be real, could it? One Friday evening, he stopped by again, just as the rain began to fall. The kids were coloring on the floor, and I was too tired to even stand. I just finished a double shift. My back hurt. My ankles were swollen. Rough day, he asked, stepping in quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He walked over to where the kids sat, crouching beside them. Hey, soldiers. Did you give your papa a hard time today? They giggled. Maybe, Leo admitted. Maybe. Adrian raised an eyebrow, pretending to frown. You know what that means, right? You all owe me 3 hugs. The boys screamed in laughter as he caught them, one by one, tickling them until their little faces turned red. And I stood there, heart pounding, watching something I didn't know I'd been craving, peace. When he finally looked up, our eyes met. The kids were curled up against his chest, giggling softly. He smiled at me. You're shaking, he said. I hadn't even noticed. I'm fine, I murmured. He stood, closing the distance between us. No, you're not. His fingers brushed my wrist, barely there, but enough to make me freeze. You should rest, he said softly. You can't keep doing this alone, Eli. My breath caught. You don't have to keep helping me, Adrian. His gaze hardened slightly. Maybe I want to. And before I could respond, the sound of thunder filled the room. The power flickered out. In the dim light, his face was so close I could see the raindrops on his eyelashes. Something inside me cracked. I stepped back before I could do something stupid. I should put the kids to bed. He nodded, his voice low. Eli. Good night, Adrian. I didn't turn around again. For 2 weeks, we danced around whatever was building between us. He'd text. I'd reply. He'd show up. I'd pretend not to expect it. But deep down, I was already falling. And I hated myself for it. Because I knew what love could do. Love could destroy. Love could bruise. Love could leave you bleeding with nothing but silence to answer your tears. Then one night, everything changed. It was past midnight. The kids were asleep. The rain outside had stopped, and the house was quiet, too quiet. I was washing dishes when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant. For a moment, I thought it might be Adrian. He sometimes stopped by after work, just to check on us. But when I opened the door, my blood ran cold. "Miss me, sweetheart?" It was him. Marcus, the father of my children. The man who'd broken my ribs once for crying too loud. The man who'd walked away the day I told him I was pregnant. He looked the same, charming smile, dangerous eyes. I couldn't move. He stepped closer. "What? No hug for me." "Get out," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You have no right to be here." "Oh, come on, Eli," he drawled. "You really think you can hide my kids from me forever?" I felt my throat close up. "They're not yours anymore. You lost that right the day you left." His smile vanished. "You think some rich alpha can replace me?" "What?" He grabbed my arm, hard enough to make me flinch. "You think I don't know what you're doing? Parading around with some CEO, pretending you're happy." Tears burned my eyes. "Let me go, Marcus." He shoved me against the wall. "You were always mine." Pain shot up my arm, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. The babies inside me kicked, scared, maybe sensing my fear. Then I heard another voice, cold and sharp like a blade. "Let him go." Marcus froze. Standing in the doorway, soaked from the rain, was Adrian. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. "Step away from him," he said quietly. Marcus laughed, his grip tightening. "And who the hell are you?" Adrian's jaw clenched. "The man who's about to break your hand if you don't let go." For a second, silence filled the room. Then, before I could even blink, Adrian grabbed Marcus's wrist and twisted. Marcus yelped, stumbling back. "Touch him again," Adrian said, his voice low and shaking with anger. "And I'll make sure you can't use that hand again." Marcus glared at him. "You think you can protect him forever?" Adrian stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Try me." Marcus's smirk faltered. Then, muttering something under his breath, he stormed out into the night. The door slammed. I stood there, trembling. Adrian turned to me slowly. His chest was rising and falling fast, his fists still clenched. "Eli," he said softly. "Are you okay?" I nodded weakly, though tears were already spilling down my face. He stepped closer, and before I could stop myself, I fell into his arms. He held me tightly, so tightly I could feel his heartbeat pounding against mine. "I've got you," he whispered. "You're safe now." Something broke inside me then. All the walls I'd built, all the fear I'd buried, it all came crashing down. I sobbed against his chest. "Why did you come?" He pulled back just enough to look at me. "Because you stopped replying to my messages." I got worried. His thumb brushed my cheek, wiping away a tear. "He won't touch you again, Eli. I swear." The way he said it, low, trembling, felt too real to be fake anymore. Later, after the police left and the kids were safe in bed, we sat on the couch in silence. The rain had started again. The only sound was the ticking of the clock. Adrian finally spoke. "You should have told me." I looked down. "I didn't want to drag you into my mess." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You think I care about mess?" I stayed quiet. "Eli," he said softly, "I don't want to pretend anymore." My head snapped up. He looked straight at me, his eyes raw. "I know we said it was fake. But somewhere along the way, I stopped playing. My heart stopped." "Adrian." He smiled sadly. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." The rain grew louder, filling the silence between us. He stood slowly, walking to the door. "Get some rest. I'll check in tomorrow." But just before he left, he turned around. "Eli, if he comes back, don't open the door. Call me." Then he was gone. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain. My heart was a storm, guilt, fear, longing all tangled together. He said he didn't want to pretend anymore. But what if I did? Not because I wanted to play it safe, but because I didn't know if my heart could survive being real again. The next morning, a text woke me up. "Pack your things. You and the kids are staying with me for a while." It's not a request. Adrian. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. He wasn't asking. He was protecting. And part of me wanted to resist. But another part, the part that still ached from last night, wanted nothing more than to say yes. When Adrian said, "You're staying with me," I thought he was joking. He wasn't. By the next morning, he was standing outside my door with a black car, 3 child seats, and a look that said there was no room for arguments. I can't just," I started. You can, he interrupted gently. It's safer. Please, Eli. Just trust me. And I did. His house wasn't just big. It was silent. The kind of silence that comes from being too used to being alone. Everything was sleek, dark, perfect, like him. The walls were tall, the windows huge. It smelled like cedar and rain. The triplets ran through the hallways like they'd found paradise. Lien squealed when he saw the piano room. Leo climbed onto the couch and called it a mountain. Liam disappeared into the kitchen, already hunting for snacks. I stood in the middle of it all, feeling small. This is too much, I murmured. You didn't have to. Adrian looked at me from across the room. I wanted to. His tone was firm but soft, like he was saying you deserve this without using those words. That first week was awkward. He worked late. I tried to keep the kids quiet. Sometimes, I'd catch him standing in the doorway, watching us with an unreadable look. Other times, I'd find small things, a new stuffed toy, a basket of fruits, medicine I hadn't asked for, appearing out of nowhere. He never said it was him, but I knew. He never said much at all. Until one night. It was a Thursday. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet except for the sound of rain against the windows. I sat on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen, lost in thought. Then Adrian walked in, jacket still on, tie loosened. Can't sleep, he asked. I shook my head. The rain helps me think. He hesitated before sitting beside me. About what? I laughed softly. Everything. The kids. Work. You. That made him turn his head, eyes narrowing slightly. Me. I keep wondering what you get out of this, I admitted. You don't owe me anything, Adrian. You're a CEO. You could be anywhere else. With anyone else. His gaze darkened. You think I'm here out of pity? No, I swallowed. I don't understand why someone like you would care about someone like me. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, quietly, he said, maybe because I see myself in you. I blinked. What do you mean? He leaned back, staring at the rain. People think I have everything. But I don't. I've just learned to hide the emptiness better than most. Something in his voice broke then, something raw and human. I whispered, you're not empty. He looked at me, and the air shifted. No. I shook my head. You care. You protect. You feel. You're just afraid of what it means. His jaw tensed. And what does it mean, Eli? That you're not as cold as you pretend to be. For a moment, neither of us breathed. Then he leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. You make me feel like I can breathe again. The world stopped. And before I could even think, his hand was on my cheek, warm and trembling. Eli, he murmured, I don't want to pretend anymore. I felt my heart splinter, every wall inside me collapsing at once. You said that before, I whispered. But people say things when they feel sorry. His grip tightened just slightly. You think I feel sorry for you? Don't I make it easy? I laughed softly, brokenly. Single father, pregnant, working late hours, hiding from an ex. Stop. His voice was low, trembling, commanding. You don't make me feel sorry, Eli. You make me want to fight. You make me want to stay. My lips parted, but no sound came out. His thumb brushed away a tear I didn't know had fallen. You don't see what I see. Then tell me, I whispered. Tell me what you see. He exhaled slowly. I see someone who never stopped trying. I see strength that shouldn't have survived, but did. I see the man I can't stop thinking about, even when I'm supposed to be working. I stared at him, tears blurring my vision. Adrian, I'm in love with you, Eli. The words hit like thunder. My chest tightened, and suddenly I couldn't hold it back anymore. The tears came, quiet and unstoppable. He pulled me into his arms without hesitation. For a long time, I just cried there, safe, warm, pressed against the heartbeat that had protected me when I didn't even ask for it. Later that night, I woke up in his arms. The rain had stopped. The moonlight spilled through the window, silver and soft. I turned to face him. He was already awake, watching me. What are you thinking? I asked quietly. That I don't want to let go, he murmured. I smiled weakly. You don't have to. And for once, I believed it. Days turned into weeks. The house didn't feel cold anymore. The kids started calling him Uncle Adrian, and then, without warning, Daddy. The first time it happened, Adrian froze mid-bite at breakfast. Lien had said it casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Daddy, can I have more syrup? I expected Adrian to correct him. But instead, he smiled, the softest, most fragile smile I'd ever seen. Of course, champ. I almost cried right there. That night, when the kids were asleep, I whispered, "You didn't have to play along." He looked at me quietly. Who said I was playing? By the time the babies were born, he was there, holding my hand, whispering that I could do this, crying quietly when he heard the first tiny cries fill the room. 3 new lives, 3 miracles, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't alone. A few months later, I stood in the same restaurant where we'd first met. Adrian sat at his old table, watching as the triplets ran between the chairs, laughing too loudly. He caught my gaze, and we both smiled. I walked over, resting my hand on his shoulder. "You know," I said softly, "you still owe my kids for hiring you that day." He chuckled. "Oh, and what do I owe them?" I leaned closer. "A lifetime contract." He laughed, really laughed, and stood pulling me into his arms. "They already signed it," he murmured against my hair. And so did I. When the triplets tugged on his sleeve, he knelt down to their height. "Daddy, can we go home now?" "Home," he repeated softly, glancing up at me. And this time, the word didn't sound like a place. It sounded like us.